What's up, Garnet Star? Is that the name? Good to see you. Wait for a few more people to show up. Today we're on episode 44 on our daily discussion. I think you're the only one here right now, but this channel mostly revolves around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found proof that we live in a simulation, and we meet here on the daily to discuss spirituality, religion, science, philosophy, and other fun topics. Hot Rod Chronicles. What a great handle. Love it. Thank you. How are you guys? TG Win. We have somebody on YouTube that showed up. Beautiful. Is that? It is my beard. It's crazy. All right. Corbin. How are you, everybody? All right. We have a good flow of people. Michelle is back. Good to see you play PNW. From Johnson, Wayne Norton, Michael. From Johnston, Max AZ. All right, everybody. Welcome. So, as I always say in the beginning of the chat, to all the newcomers, just so you know, this channel mostly revolves around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found proof that we live in a simulation. And we meet here on the daily to discuss science, spirituality, religion, philosophy, and obviously the discovery to anybody who wants to discuss it and the details. And you guys are welcome to ask any questions you want. I usually outline it in the beginning shortly, and then we begin a conversation. I'm going to wait a few more seconds for more people to show up, and then I'll give you a good outline of what the experiment is. Talk a little bit of what we have in the pipeline. How are you, everybody? Trucker Tony, 67. Great handles today. All right, everybody. So, once again, this channel revolves around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found a proof that we live in simulation. We meet here on the daily to discuss science, spirituality, religion, philosophy, and other fun topics. What I've discovered a few years ago is that if you project a diffracted laser on the surface while on a particular molecule that I cannot name on this live chat, you will see code running in surfaces. And this observation has now been verified by over 1,000 people worldwide. I'm in contact with some leading scientists in the field. This is not to say that everybody necessarily agree with me of what the implications are, but these are the state of affairs in broad strokes, so you know what we're talking about. When expectations don't meet reality and you're forced to accept, how do you do that? That is a great question, Adam. Well, it depends what you expect of reality. I try not to expect too much. So that way, it's a little bit more of a stoic position. That's how I handle situations. Trump 100%. Good. Should you accept what you can change? Wait, should you accept what you can change? Or you mean what you can't change? Is that what you meant to say? What's up, Sonia? Craig? Teddy, Jasmine? Good to see everybody. I've changed my reality a few times by strategies, action. You mean as in the way that you've organized your life? Is that what you mean? Thank you so much, Teddy, for the gift. I appreciate you. And by the way, if anybody wants to come on and speak, you're more than welcome to. Just give me the subject matter in the comments and I'll bring you up. Impressive mullet. Well, you know, I'm trying to impress, so I appreciate it. One Halloween, I was Joe Dirt inadvertently. What happened was I kind of went to the costume store and got a costume last second. By the way, to all the people, newcomers, I have a channel on YouTube called Dango Thoughts that you can go check it out. Dango Thoughts, DANGO Thoughts. And I have videos there that are much more lengthy and explain things more in detail. But in general, this channel revolves around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I'm claiming to have found proof that we live in a simulation. What I discovered a few years ago is that if you project a diffracted laser on the surface while ingesting a particular molecule that I cannot name on this chat, you will see code running in surfaces, and this observation has now been verified over 1,000 times worldwide and going, also involved with some leading scientists in the field. Now back to my mullet. How are you, Cal? What happened was there was one Halloween where I went last second to the Halloween store and didn't know what to get. They were ran out of everything. All they had left was this basically a Bill Haley, a hillbilly, a hillbilly costume basically, and it wasn't Joe Dirt. It was just like kind of like a mullet and um, a set of like a goatee, blonde goatee, and I just put it on and was walking around Hollywood, and everybody everywhere was just like, "Yo, Joe Dirt, Joe Dirt." I was like, "Oh, well, I guess I'm Joe Dirt." I didn't even know that. That was amazing. And now, see, I got also Jesus. So Jesus and Joe Dirt. It's quite a spectrum. But they both start with a J, so I guess it does belong to some one family in one way. Can you shave the sides of your hair? I had that hairdo, just so you know, when I was a kid. Not only that, I've also had the yin yang, outline in the back of my head. So all kinds of things. I loaded the double slit picture today. Oh, it was great, isn't it? I should post it on TikTok as well. Do they have stories on TikTok? This is how clueless I am. How are you, everybody? Yesterday, the chat was very late to all the regulars because we were filming all day, and I only got to the chat at around 11:30 p.m. Pacific time. What's interesting is that there was a giant crowd here, so giant in comparison to what we usually have. So I'm considering at least once or twice a week, maybe streaming at that time. It's interesting. There was like I think 60 to 100 people at any given point in the chat. It was kind of crazy, if I'm not mistaken. So the great small thing of a throne juice. All right. We have a lot of. Did you see the simulation theory video on the Star Talk channel? No, I have not. So I'm very clear. If you want to have a conversation, you're more than welcome to have a conversation. No one is going to preach here. Thank you. What's up, what? What's up, what? Wow, why do you mention gay, by the way? Is there a particular reason? Just because it's the same subject matter? Just because they talked about the simulation theory. So what's interesting about what I'm proposing is that it's not really, well, I mean, still a theory, obviously, but not, I mean, at least to me, it isn't. So to me, it's an absolute certainty. We can talk about the details of what is meant by the word simulation, but for me, it's an 100% certainty that we live in a computational simulated world. Cut my phone off around 9 p.m. every night, but good to get exposure from more people. Yeah, it was. That's actually very smart, Cal. Let me see. Oh boy. But yeah, that is actually very smart. So, but I was surprised. There were so many people from all over the world. That we can see, so we don't have any accidents. And it was a pretty fun discussion, actually, I have to say. So yeah, maybe once or twice a week, I'm gonna, stream later. I mean, it sucks hour-wise. I don't want to go sleep that late. Their take on it was 50% chance we aren't living in a simulation. So they are 100% wrong, which would be a fun thing to tell Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's definitely not going to get worked up about it and pull his science credentials, which he's entitled to, of course, but it's going to be a fun conversation one day. It's a breath of fresh air to find a genuine creator. Um, uh, of course, Gabe, I will outline it right now. Jared Bryan 500, appreciate you. If you're talking about me, you don't feel like there's genuine creators? I mean, like content creators, right? Not the creator, right? So you don't feel like there are good channels? I feel like there's quite a bit, but I appreciate it, of course. But I feel like there's quite a bit of really good, genuine people on TikTok sometimes. Let me see. Thoughts on? I'm gonna respond to you, Gabe, in one moment. Thoughts on Noosphere, Princeton, if you had a chance to check it out. I did look into it. Hold on. Let me go back there real quick. Where did I place this tab? Ah, oh my God, Chrome is being weird. Let me see. Okay, it is official. I definitely need to. Damn, I don't know where it is right now. Is it this? In the meanwhile, while I'm searching for it, no, it is not this. Let me see if it's maybe in my Brave. I am so terrible at closing tabs. I'm the worst at that. Okay, it's gonna take us too far afield. No, I didn't look into deep enough, Kel. Thank you for the reminder. I opened it. I started looking through it, and then I was inundated with a billion things. So I will look right after we're done with this, so I don't forget again. And then tomorrow we'll discuss it. Unless you actually want to outline it and talk about it more in depth, that can be fun. What is happening on YouTube? What is up with YouTube? I have no idea. Recently, I've had so many issues with YouTube. It's crazy. Like the chat's not working. Now it's lagging. It's so annoying, man. Okay. Well, it is what it is. Gabe, what I discovered a few years ago is that if you project a diffracted laser on the surface while on a particular molecule that I cannot name here in the chat, you will see code running in surfaces. Now, obviously, that was just the beginning of the road. I then started showing other people. Everybody started seeing the same thing. I've since been vocal about it online, and I got the privilege of engaging with some pretty influential people, both in terms of people who investigated this and also some known researchers in the space. And we now have over 1,000 replications worldwide. We're working on a documentary about the discovery. So what I discovered essentially takes it out of the realm of just hypothetical theory that is based on some statistical analysis of what are the probability of certain technologies being developed at a certain speed, to something that akin to much more mainstream science, which is testable, something you can make predictions about. And this is where the conversation with people like Neil deGrasse Tyson might be interesting. I don't know how they landed on 50%. I can't even think of a scenario in which, in my head, that they would, can posture. Like, obviously, you can play with that game, but obviously, that's not a real statistic, right? Because the sample rate you have is you have an n of 1. You have only us at the moment to compare. So unless you have some kind of a way to probe into the idea, which is what I'm claiming to have found, you don't really have anything of significance to say. Some people that love play with statistics, they would tell you that you can still run probabilities of things that never happened. I beg to differ. I think that the reality is that ultimately, when we run a statistical analysis, it always somehow lands eventually on something that we have some pretty high sample rate of. And you can try and bring me examples of where you think that is not the case, and we can talk about it. But as far as I can tell, that's never the case. The same way that when people are trying to run a statistic about infinite possibilities or something, right? So they say like, well, this is why the anthropic principle is kind of lame. It might be true, but it's a lame argument because it's kind of like neither here nor there. If you're saying that there's infinite possibilities exist of something, to say that some portion of them will undoubtedly have the results that you're looking for, fill in the blank. It doesn't matter if you're talking about our universe or some type of things arising or whatever it is that you want to inject into the something happening every once in a while in infinite space. Yeah, that's just it's kind of like saying water is wet. It's completely meaningless. It's like, yeah, that's obvious. Okay, now what? You can't really do anything with it. And anybody who pretends to run a probability on that is just pretending. You can't run a probability on an infinite space. And that kind of belongs in that space. So I am actually very excited to have very respectful and interesting conversations with people who are true scientists, in especially people who disagree, because it will reveal some probably weak points in the way that the idea is presented, which gives the opportunity to strengthen the idea and actually think about how do you formulate it in a way that is intelligible to people who will not necessarily partake in these substances. Neil deGrasse Tyson will definitely be one of these individuals that will never ever try the substance. Never say never. Who knows, right? But if I have to run a statistical probability of Neil deGrasse Tyson ever trying it, I would gamble on close to zero. I would love if I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Um, and I would say that at this point, if I'm offering a particular way to a probe into a part of reality that will give one an insight into a portion of it that we previously didn't consider to be real, then I would say it is very similar to the Catholic Church, the Catholic Church refusing to look through the telescope. I would say it's very much the same. Let's see. What's up, Patricia? Good to see you. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you, Gabe. How are you, Nolan? Nolim? How do you pronounce your name? Can you type it in for me? Thank you. Feel free to check it later on. Oh, yeah, I definitely will. Download Nolan. Nolan? Wait, so that's not your name? That's like a thing? What is Nolan? Oh, man. It's Chrome. Hold on. Let me just shut some things down. Oh, okay. We're good. Basics. Human events and large meditation sessions trigger random and generated to be less random. So, then in that case, it's going to be extra interesting, Cal, because from what I've heard, these things never work when you try to do the thing. So I would love to be proven wrong. So I'm very excited to check it out. Thank you. Sad. What is sad, Ryan? I'm in way over my head here, but I'm going to try take notes. This is cool. You got it, Jared. And feel free to ask questions so I can know how I can be of service to maybe clarify some things. So is reality being written every second, or is everything programmed and predetermined to happen? That is a great question, Gabe. From what I'm seeing so far, it is the former. It is unfolding into a space that the simulation itself cannot inspect. The code literally codes for something new all the time, according to what conscious beings kind of evolve to assimilate and believe that is possible. You have some basic framework that you can call the physical space, and that is kind of like the stage the way it's set, but it is also malleable to a degree until the right kind of knowledge comes in to learn to interact with it. So I would say it's the former. It is actually writing into a new space. Otherwise, so there's two types of simulations you can run, right? You can run a simulation of a particular process that you have to have that process unfold, and then you leave room for randomness to unfold within the process and see if you run the same process 1,000 times, will things happen differently at any point, right? Or you can run a completely open-ended simulation, which I think is the case with our simulation and all the other simulations that the simulators run, because that actually allows them to probe into a particular aspect of reality, without which it would kind of break the whole hypothesis down. We all are. Whoa. Let me see. We all are. So you're right. Including me, by the way. Dingo my dango. Love the handle. Yeah, so that is actually a really good clarifying question. Oh, YouTube just jumped to more people. That's awesome. So yesterday's shoot was great. We did another experiment with somebody who's never seen the code before. It was another whopping success. Um, Now, obviously, to all the very rigorously scientifically minded people, yes, it does not clear the bar of what you would consider to be a full-on, scientific double blind. Obviously, that's not what we're trying to do for the film. My contention is that you'd actually, at least for this period, this stage of the development, you don't really need to do that to establish that what people actually see is something we all see the same way and agree, because this idea that you can uh, basically influence somebody to see the exact same thing all the time, it's flimsy at best, right? It's not a real thing. Like, um, you can inject some ideas into people's minds. Priming is a real thing in psychology, right? If you let somebody hold a cup of a hot drink without them realizing it, they would tend to have positive things to say about you, and vice versa. If you let them hold a cold drink, they will predominantly have negative emotions towards you, which is like a very simple, literally temperature binary thing. And then people change entirely their perception of their experience, the person they're in front of. That all of that is true. But the hot and the cold drink is not going to make them see a specific thing always in the same way, no matter who they are, no matter where they are. That doesn't happen. The code is the code is the code is the code. Like, it doesn't change now many, 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 many times. And because of that, I would say that the priming part doesn't even matter. Obviously, scientists will disagree and they will say, no, 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 let's first establish that this is real in the double blind way. Sure, I'm not doing that, because also there's other elements that I'm trying to investigate as we go. But yeah, so we had another person who'd never seen it before, and we interviewed before, we interviewed after. He was blown away per usual, and it's always interesting to see people's reactions. It's just, it's so matter of fact that they just don't, you know, they're left speechless for a second. Um, Let me see. It was an awesome question. I agree with that, Jared. How long did it take the new person to see it? 5 minutes. Yeah, some people just see it. I have no idea why that is. So what Cal is referring to is that some people it takes them a little while, sometimes hours, sometimes a few tries. I don't know why that is. I really don't, and I wish I would, but it's a one-way street. The second you see it, you cannot unsee it. So do you believe we'll ever create a simulation that tries to create a simulation loop? It's not only loop. I'm claiming that that's what reality is doing. It's all simulation on top of simulation on top of simulation. And it's not like it's just like how you think of it in terms of somebody creates a computer and then they simulate something inside the computer. Computers are just a, a physical instantiation of a much deeper principle, which is a law of physics, really, which is computation in general. And what I'm claiming is that the world at bottom is computational, and all these parallel slices of reality that kind of sit on top of each other, they are the simulations. So you can think of a simulation as a parallel reality or a slice of reality. That is to whether or not we will create one, we will undoubtedly create one because it's part of how the world works. Ever play GTA, Game of Life, The Sims? It will only get more advanced. And the game of life is a good indication that there's some fundamental thing that is happening, because the game of life, if you're not familiar, we talked about it a few times. You can Google the game of life by Conway. I think it's Conway, right? And he was a known mathematician, and he created this one particular strand of what's called the cellular automata, with particular four rules called the game of life. There's only four basic rules to this grid of squares, and when you run the program, all the program does is instantiate these four rules. That's it, and you have very complex structures arise. So it shows you that there's some deeper principle at play. To say that it just happens, it's not really an explanation. It's not clear why that happens, right? Or why do we see something that is intelligible and we can recognize structure? By the way, the business who's not here today, or maybe not here yet, he sent me an email with my name made in the game of life. It was very funny. And then it kind of disperses. It's hilarious, and I appreciate it. I will try and figure out what happens in the moment I see it, for sure. Yeah, that would be very helpful. So far, no luck. Nobody can tell me what the deal is. How are you, Amakuri? Good to see you. Amakuri. Amakuri. No, it's my dyslexia plus my accent plus being somewhat, in the end of the day, it's a great combo. What did I want to say? Oh, got to put clothes in the dryer. 1 second. All of these. All of these. Right. All right. I'm back. Yesterday, when we were filming, the puppy didn't really know what to do with himself because there were so many things happening. He peed on everything. The floor, the mats we put out. It was incredible. So I have to watch so many things today. The beauty of production. Where were we? We were with me mispronouncing mockery, I think, right? Yes. Okay. So what did I talk about yesterday in the chat? It was a pretty good chat. I enjoyed it. I guess what was happening yesterday is that because a lot of people showed up, most people that showed up yesterday, aside from a couple of people, were new people, and there was a lot of them. So I had to literally retell a lot of the stuff. But because I know there were a lot of people that are not familiar, it didn't feel like I'm, boring people. So there was an energy behind it. Plus, I was right after the not a successful experiment, so it was good vibes. And every time I retell it, I guess I have a little bit more clarity around what's going on and why it's happening. And one of the things I've been recently preoccupied by is this not very clear connection to me between what people even here in the chat describe as the awakening, us recognizing role one, something we also talk about quite a bit in this chat, and what I'm saying in the space, because they don't necessarily fully agree, in the sense that the content that I see most of the time on the molecule is not of that kind of flavor. Now, I trust what I hear from a lot of people in this space, and I've also seen pretty wild things. But at least the content that I'm receiving is a little bit different, and it's kind of hard to reconcile sometimes. So this is a very big and open question for me. I'm definitely not boring you. I just hate asking annoying questions, trying to digest everything. Oh no, please ask away. Yeah, anybody here. The whole point of this chat to show up daily, is for me to show up for people. So this time I'm allocating it in the evening, try and bring my energy to the right place so I can, maybe it doesn't always compute that way, but what I'm trying to do is essentially give back. So like spend some time with people who are interested in the subject, answer questions directly. This chat started because a lot of people from our Zoom calls always told me that it's very valuable and they wish I would do more of that. And then I realized, well, why don't I just do a daily chat and then people can show up instead of sending invites and all that stuff. So very long-winded way of saying, please ask away, don't shy away, ask whatever you want. It helps me understand what is not clear. So yeah, yesterday I got to clarify all of that, and this really, this thing I just mentioned is the hardest thing for me to reconcile. I know that whatever the truth is, there is some kind of an overarching arc that, and it's a thread that goes through all of it. I think I'm slowly finding it, but it's not always that clear, and it's extra difficult to do when people keep showing up in different ways and saying, we are, no time, no time, let's go now, it's happening. It just feels like the divine plan will not have this kind of maybe it might have urgency, but it wouldn't have this kind of like very jarring and disjointed feeling. It's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like it, like the divine energy would have a plan that takes into account the level of development of every single creature, because it has infinite compassion and love, or it's supposed to have, right? So it would not create a system, it seems to me, that whatever is happening will have this like crazy roller coaster where you're just like, come on, no time. Or then it's not what we imagine the divine thing to be. And then we need still a different frame. And what I can never get behind is this infinite ultimate conviction people have. It doesn't matter what it is, but they have sometimes this. Well, obviously you see this with religious people very strongly, which is like they just know. They just know. I can never get behind this energy. It's crazy to me. It's like either people like it's people with psychotic break have this energy, right? It's like this manic I just know kind of thing with no ability to receive any input. And that's what a lot of like religious zealots feel to me like. And it's so clear to me that the Jesus Christ that people believe in would not have this kind of energy. And I would assume nothing that is emanating the divine, or what we call the divine. This is why, by the way, I'm not 100% clear on what is the connections between all these things. And what's more, it seems, and again, of course I can be wrong, but my intuition tells me that whatever the truth, ultimate truth is, it will kind of go, what are you doing, bud? Will go through the layers in a way that embodies this more constructive, balanced energy versus like one side or another side, winning a war, that kind of energy. What's up, Matthew Savage? Islam is the evidence, though. See, that's what I mean. Everybody thinks they have the evidence, right? Infinite conviction seems like a way to make life easier. Unknown can be frightening. Yeah, I feel like it's too much work, maybe. People don't like to constantly refreshing the browser. It's comfortable with what you know. But did you look at the lamb's evidence? It's shocking. Why is it shocking? Or maybe your bar for shocking is pretty low, brother. Studying the intricacies of a black hole is shocking. Yeah. What do you got to be more specific, brother. I'm not gonna go and start like you have to bring, if you bring up a subject, everything is welcome, but then you have to be specific and you have to give it some outline. I know TikTok kind of limits you with the characters. I understand that. You can always come to YouTube because there's more allowance for more characters. It's Dango Thoughts on YouTube. Well, you were just saying that religions just know. No, I said it. I can never get behind the energy of people who think they just know. How do I say this bluntly? You don't. I'm saying that Islam is real evidence. I'm telling you that every single person on this planet with that level of conviction thinks that. Christians, Jews, Muslims, scientists, but scientists do this in a different way, where they actually check in with the world. And it's a very long process of checking with the world thinking, checking with the world, thinking. That's why it's a little different. Yeah, I know, but in Islam, they know because they have evidence. What is the evidence? To say they have evidence is not evidence. So, what is the evidence for you? Again, Islam is a whole religion, brother. So, no, I'm not going to go into a whole religion. I read the Quran, but I'm not going to go into a whole religion to then try and think through the whole way. What did Matthew mean? Like, do you really think that's reasonable? So, what is it for you, the evidence? And then we can talk about it. I know you only have 120 characters, but you can either go to YouTube. By the way, you can also email me. I answer all my emails. Sometimes it takes me a few days, but I answer all of them. So you can email me to lasersimulationx@gmail.com, lasersimulationx@gmail.com. I assure you, and again, I will read what you have to say, but when I don't know what you think that Islam is verifying with the world, but let's say check all religions are not really checking with the world. They just push an ideology. The ability test and how it reinvented the language it was revealed in. Hold on. The simulation inherently land to a divine or intelligent creation or something more ambiguous. I think that, well, that's an interesting way of phrasing it, Jared. So I don't know if so ambiguous, I think, is the closest actual word to what it really is. Because we have a perception of what divine is, but I think that if it's an alien civilization, it will be so alien as to be very ambiguous exactly what things are. We don't really understand the character of a lot of these things. And I'm sure that if the divine, like almighty God exists, then you do have some kind of like emanating goodness in it. The thing is that you have a situation where when people get too entrenched in an idea and they get too attached to like a particular story, I think it's very easy for them to not realize that they drift very far from this loving energy to the extent that they start justifying horrific acts, right? So that is something that is a real problem that is happening when people are too entrenched in an idea and they think that that idea tracks the all in all everything there is to know, which is literally the definition of delusion. So let me see. I am okay. Let me just type it in, Matthew. Let me see. What is the imitability test? What does that mean? Did you mean limit? So if I type in the limitability test in Islam, is Allah only tests you to your limits and not more than that? Is that what you mean? I would not use words like irrefutable, brother. There's nothing irrefutable. Not even the most solid scientific theory is not irrefutable. If something is irrefutable, that's not evidence. That's by definition dogma. Though it has evidence that this is the real instruction made for the simulation. It has irrefutable evidence that it is the instruction manual for the simulation. It's a weird question, sir. Cannot be imitated. It's a weird question. Wait. Well, you have to spell it so I can Google it. I have I definitely identify with people who can spell well, but you gotta because otherwise I can't Google it and I can't engage with what you're trying to say. Inimitability, dude. What a word. Okay, hold on. His question about an immutability challenge. What is the immutability test for the Quran? Doctrine which holds that the Quran has a miraculous quality both in content and in form that no human speech can match. That's a claim. Where is it proven? So I'm going to help you out, brother. If you can type in a few messages, maybe 2 or 3, because what it says here is the inevitability. Yeah, it is hard to say. Immutability test is the doctrine which holds. It even says doctrine, which holds that the Quran has a miraculous quality both in content and in form that no human speech can match. This has very rigorous testing permit. Again, you're not really saying anything. You need to look for the longer description. I can during a chat. Like, I'm not gonna start going through a bunch of documents. I'm sure you can summarize it, right? If you're convinced, what are the key points that convinced you? Let's just put it that way. Here, I'll do you one better. I'll take it to ChatGPT. Let's see. Come on. What is... What the... Oh. Huh? Hold on. Oh, okay. Now I see. I'm going to read the first paragraph, right? So the inimitability test in Islam refers to the concept of Ijal Quran, which means the miraculous or inimitable nature of the Quran. This concept asserts that the Quran is of such extraordinary eloquence, linguistic perfection, I can tell you it isn't, and profound meaning that it cannot be imitated or replicated by human effort, even if all humanity were to try. Doesn't it sound to you like the biggest narcissist in the world said this about himself? This claim of inimitability is rooted in the belief that the Quran is divine in origin, revealed. Okay, so basically, the same thing that all religious people claim, which their shit is the best. So how is this different than any other religious claim? Am I Turkish? No, I'm Russian originally. Why do you ask? I'd be happy to jump on for a short, brief verbal description. Sure. You asked for a request? 1 second. Yeah. Why? Do you read it in Arabic? Hold on. How you doing, brother? You're back.
I thought you blocked me, but thanks for having me back again.
Wait, why would I block you?
I don't know. Because we were talking about some wild stuff last time.
That's what this is about.
Awesome. So thanks for showing your interest. Let me just try to describe what this is. I found it so intriguing, and the short description doesn't do it justice. Like your general summary, you really have to look into this.
No, can I stop you real quick? I really don't. I'll tell you why. Because when something begins with that, that's a no-go in general. You don't have to entertain all ideas to know that in the beginning the idea is stupid. Sorry to be blunt, but there's
Well, I'm not sure you understand what the non-immutability test is.
So explain it to me. Yeah, I'm just telling you what ChatGPT says. It's pretty good at summarizing things.
Well, let me describe a little bit further than what you read on stream.
Sure.
So at the time that the Quran was revealed, right, we
Mhm.
have basically two types of functions in language. We have prose, which are like statements, right?
Mhm.
And the other one is wow, it just slipped my mind, like poetry, so to speak.
No, I
So,
get it. You don't have to find the exact terms. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, I understand what you mean.
yeah,
Okay.
prose and something else.
Sure.
But so at the time, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the differences between phonetic and Semitic languages.
Not enough to remember. Enlighten me.
Okay, so phonetic languages like English, right? They're written how they're spelled, right? Or like they're written how they're pronounced.
Oh,
So
English?
you can spell it out.
Do you know it? Are you sure you want to say that about English? how do you spell rough?
Don't get me started about silent letters.
Yeah. Okay.
Technically, English is a phonetic language. It's not a Semitic language, which means that you can convey a Semitic language allows you to convey more information than what is just in the written text and what is verbally spoken.
That's how Hebrew is.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a Semitic language. It
Okay.
allows you to convey more information than what is just in the written text. I guess that's a better way than using phonetic about spelling.
In what way? In what way specifically? Like, what is the mechanism by which it's doing that? Because I can tell you that in Hebrew it has to do with.
Form, there are different characters that can convey additional information.
Yeah.
Which also allow you to create. Which goes into a whole other topic, which I don't want to waste too much time on. But there are numerical and ciphering and sort of all information security parameters you can also embed in these type of things. But I don't want to go into that.
No. So that wait. But that is the central point, right? So what I was about to say, that the way that Hebrew does it is that you have a whole system of essentially a type of numerology that is built into the language, which is called gematria, in which you can actually take every letter and transform it to a number, and then you can run calculations according to words,
Right.
and that's how the word Yehovah, like the name of God, and all that
So
stuff. Right?
Arabic has a similar function.
Okay.
And so what I want to highlight next is I'm sure you know that roughly the English language has roughly 250,000. I think it's between 100 and 250,000 words, and Arabic contains 2 million words. Like, think about that difference for a second. And one of the reasons that
It does not necessarily make it more superior, by the way, just so you know.
Huh?
It does not necessarily make it more superior. There's a local minimum.
I'm not talking about superiority.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about first I need to establish why the instruction manual for the simulation would be revealed in a Semitic language and not a phonetic language.
Okay.
This is the first point that I want to establish.
Got it. Okay.
And the second
Fair
point
point
I want to establish is at the time the book was revealed, it reinvented the most what I'll say now, not superior, but the most eloquent and diverse and specific language we have on the earth. I would argue that.
Do you speak Arabic?
Huh?
Do you speak Arabic?
Yes, I do. I took several levels.
Okay.
I know I can get through coordinating dates and events, and I visited the Middle East quite often.
Okay.
So, now, at the time the book was revealed, you had these glorious poets that were supposedly masters of the language.
Mm-hmm.
And when the book was revealed, it reinvented the most eloquent language on the planet, and the book cannot be imitated, meaning even in the shortest chapter, and it offers a falsifiable, what I know scientists like, what are they called? Test to falsify. The challenge in the Quran, which is stated directly, is it's challenging anyone to imitate even just a single chapter of it in Arabic. And Muslims, non-Muslims have tried this, and there
Wait, imitate in what way? Imitate in what way?
What's that?
Imitate in what way?
So, for example, you can take Shakespeare, and you could imitate a Shakespeare writing.
You mean in the style and
style? There's many, and I'm not a linguist, right? But they have. You can watch them if you'd like. Again, you don't have to. Yeah. But they have specific parameters when it's talking about imitating something.
Okay.
In linguistics,
sure,
it has to do with the number of syllables, and there's like a whole bunch of.
We can call it the topology of language. Sure.
Exactly. So, for the last 1,400 years, and this has been tried a lot of times, it cannot be imitated. And so this is actually much more profound than it sounds, because you should be able to imitate it. But it seems that it took the most eloquent and robust language, reinvented it on top of the civilization that created it, revealing whole new concepts, introducing a larger part of the language, which they actually consider Quranic Arabic as a separate segment of Arabic. It's like the most formal way of speaking. It's the most eloquent way that you can speak in the most eloquent language. So there is no way. And by the way, the entire thing is in poetry. So I know you may have read the Quran in English, but the entire thing rhymes. So you have a book with over 2,400 passages, all rhyming, that are expressing the most profound concepts that have been ever revealed to that civilization, and also contains in the order of 40 to 50 proven scientific miracles that were predicted ahead of its scientific discovery as well, which is another thing.
So how is this different from the entire rabbinical enterprise and the Zohar and the Kabbalah and the claims that the Old Testament does all of the things you just mentioned?
Well, because the Old Testament doesn't claim to be the unaltered word of the
it does.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
I
This
don't
is why
think
the
they
Jews.
do.
Well, I can tell you, this is not a matter of opinion. This is a fact. So the reason the Jews don't become Christians is exactly because of that. It's because they said that the Christians are confused about it being revised. It was never revised. It is not. It is forbidden to be revised. It is the first and final word of the Creator to humanity, according to the Jewish tradition.
Well, again, that's a claim too that can also be challenged by.
No, I'm telling you what the Jews right, but that's so you have a sect of humans believe this, you have a sect of humans believe this, and just because one sect of humans had more babies does not make their claims more viable, right?
No, I'm looking at the evidence to back the claim.
No, I'm saying that the claim is the same. So right now you have two people. You have the Muslim.
The validity of the claim is based on the evidence, right?
But the evidence, I'm telling you that I kind of actually looked at some of these things, and in the Zohar, you actually have quite wild things that kind of it's actually kind of hard to explain how they kind of came up with this stuff, and it definitely tracks everything you just said about the Quran and about the Arabic language. Now, I will fully admit that I don't know enough about the Arabic language and about the traditions that the deep mystical traditions inside of Islam that are investigating this. But I am telling you with 100% certainty that the claims you just made, every single one of them, the predictions, the level of unable to actually replicate this kind of way of speaking and putting the language in that order, the perfection of the type of the linguistic use, all of that stuff, all of that is claimed by the Jews, and I went through a little bit of that, and I can tell you that some of it actually checks out, which is kind of wild. I didn't expect it to, but it does. I'm not saying that it isn't in what you're saying. It might be also, but I'm saying for sure, here's another tradition that is much older, that, by the way, the Muslim tradition came out of in the end of the day, and because everything came out of Judaism originally, and they make the same claim. So at least on that point, you have a competing claim for the same exact thing. So you can't say that that one is more than the other one, right? Because you're saying that the validity is in the actual. Wait, I don't know why you jumped off, but I'm going to continue unless you want to jump back on. No problem. But I don't understand how you can make the assertion that only one of them is correct because somebody decided that. What I meant by one tradition made more babies, yeah, there's just a lot more Muslims in the world, but it does not for a second make the claim more valid in any shape or form. So hopefully you'll jump on. I don't know why you disappeared. Let's see. To your question, Cal. No, I will give him to Matthew. This it is not an imitation when you just translate something. Imitation, he means like you imitate the style, the way. And by the way, I don't know if he knows this. Again, if he comes back, we'll reiterate the point. But they actually did do this. So all the predictions of the Old Testament, for example, they went to, I think it was Huckleberry Finn, and they created the same kind of game with the mathematical precision, all that stuff, to make some assertions about modern events that happened after Huckleberry Finn was written. So in that sense, you can claim that Huckleberry Finn actually made all these predictions. I would claim that the true reason that all of this is possible is because the human mind is very good at finding patterns. So when you look at after the fact at something, it's actually almost impossible to find a text or any body of work that has a certain amount of information in which you wouldn't be able to do this kind of thing with, because the human mind is very inventive, and you will always find a way to connect dots in a way that kind of fits whatever you're trying to say. But at least directly to the claim that was just made, I'm not saying yes or no to the validity of these claims. I'm saying that at least for sure I know there's another tradition that claims for the same kind of accolades in the Holy Book. So that's for sure the case. This feels it's really funny. This feels a little bit like, have you ever seen what's his name? Matt Dillahunty, right? This Dillahunty. I'm sure he would appreciate this. Dillahunty. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but when he had that old show, how he became known, when people because he was religious and he knows the Bible really well, and then people would call and trying to prove the existence of God, and he would he would argue with them, and he would just hang up on them all the time. It's hilarious. So this feels a little bit like that. I don't want it to be like that. I truly want to entertain the idea. It's just that the level of certainty that these ideas are made with is just insane to me. There's no scientist in the world, which for the most part are way smarter than most people that just kind of study whatever else because you require a certain caliber of mind, and it's just a fact. But they would never claim this level of certainty about something, even about their level of expertise, their subject of expertise. So that level of certainty is, and then people like Terrence Howard come in and blame scientists for being arrogant. It's just so backwards. Religious comment. No, apparently he jumped up. I don't know if he just had an issue with connection. He's more than welcome to come back on. Pseudo pigrapha. I don't know that word. Sorry. Let me learn what that means. I know what pseudo means. Pigrapha. Jewish religion ranging from the period of 2000 BC to AD that are anonymous and pseudo-anonymous and are not included in canon of biblical scripture. The word comes from the Greek word pseud, which means to inscribe, and falsely inscribed, respectively plural. Oh, I see. So I don't know to what you're responding there. Fuchs Realtx. But you can clarify if you want. Finding patterns feels a bit. Hold on. Finding patterns feels a bit like time wave zero. It even could be an issue with Noosphere, but I'm still looking into Noosphere. Yeah, I'll definitely look into it. And again, this is why the scientific method is so far one that has no second to in town, so to speak, because it's based on predictability. So if you can't come up with a model that also predicts something, yeah, it might be held in some regard, but then it will not be really held in that much of a high regard, because then that means you don't really understand the process. You're just kind of guessing like everybody else, and you have a nice story to tell about what you're saying. But unless it can make a prediction, not so much. Please repeat. The scientific method is what? Sorry. The reason the scientific method is so far unmatched in the level of importance, so to speak, let's call it that, is because it is the only thing we so far devised that has this element of predictability. So like if you can't come up with, because a theory in the end of the day is just kind of like a story that strings all the facts together, right? But your theory needs to be able to make predictions. So like if this is true, then this and this and this and this and this and this and this has to happen. And in fact, the better the theory is, the harder it is to vary that theory. So if the theory is really good, like E equals mc squared, for example, the special relativity and general relativity, if you change one parameter, if one observation is wrong about whatever it is that we're seeing, it will cast doubt on the entire thing. And this is the crazy part, it always checks out every single time, aside from when you get to like the interaction with the very small, which is why we have this weird, departure with quantum physics. But when it comes to over a certain size, it's just always right, which is insane. So your theory always have to make predictions. That's what I'm saying. And if the claim about a holy book is A, B, and C, okay, if this is true, what can you predict right now that will be the case or happen? This idea that people cannot match something else is absurd. People always can. I don't know who went and tested. I bet you nobody, or the people who claimed that they did, they never did. I can say this with like a very high degree of certainty. With it, and I'm not even trying to be like, like it's just that it doesn't work that way. It's not how knowledge works. Period. I think really like truly, I think that the thing that is missing here is epistemology itself. So like people need to go a little deeper into like understanding epistemology, which is like the knowledge of knowledge. How do we know things, right? And it's a very important field of study actually, because it gets into like on a high level, it gets into very complicated things. For example, what is this weird efficacy of mathematics? Like we just kind of like take it for granted, right? It's like, why is it tracking reality so well? Is it reality like Max Tegmark thinks? Is it just like these correlations because our minds coming up with them? Why are they different than regular spoken language? What is it about these relational framework that allows us to track what reality is doing so well? The reality includes these weird rulers that like we can kind of rely on. Like what is happening there? So that would be part of epistemology. Is it that our minds just make certain relationships match with what we're seeing as regularities? You can go even into like more, I guess, speculative realms, and it will still be like the rigor of epistemology, which is like, well, what is reality a mind? And then how do we describe what we see as regularities in terms of what this larger mind is doing? Because then it's not just like a blanket statement. You have to make predictions. You have to say, okay, well, if the universe is mind, here's what should follow. It's an informational pattern. Okay, informational patterns behave a certain way. We know a couple of things about computation, informational patterns. Okay, does it match what we see? Does it? Does it not? Does it? Does it not? Across the entire decision tree, you have to keep doing this. And also the correlation is there. Correlation of what? Coda Forest, I saw you didn't need to retract the message. I saw your message. Sorry, I'm not responding. It's just that I didn't know what to say to that. And hello to everybody on YouTube. I see you. If you have any comments, please put it in. And also the correlation is that, oh, you said that. Sorry. Yeah, what do you mean by that? It's interesting. I'm observing myself. Did Matthew present the evidence of how Islam is the instruction manual for the simulation? I know he was building towards the case. Again, I don't know why he jumped off. Maybe his connection was bad. I don't know. Well, if he comes back, I'll definitely put him back on. I think if I have to steelman his argument, what he was trying to do is first establish that the Arabic language, first of all, is that advanced, and then that the Quran specifically has all the elements that he was attributing to it. He wanted to establish that first, which is a legitimate move. And I think what he was about to argue is that then the assertion from there is that the code for the instructions for the simulation could have only be written in that language. Now, aside from there's quite a few logical loopholes there, but I can tell you from at least from what I discovered, the code is definitely not written in Arabic. Like with 100% certainty, it does not look like that. And if anything, it actually looks a little bit like Hebrew. So there's a few characters that kind of look like Hebrew, like an aleph, like so. There's it looks like Japanese more than anything else, even though it is not. And it's combined with some things that kind of look like Hebrew letters with regular numbers. Again, it's a very big question as to why it's even discernible. But these are the closest things I can say that it looks like. And it doesn't matter who you are, by the way. Again, everybody sees the same exact thing. That's what's so crazy about it. But to your question, Spore Muse, I think that was the hierarchy of the argument. The first, this language is all that, then this book is all that, then this is why you could only write the code of reality in that language. This first part about this language is all that, not sure, don't know enough. Second part, at least the English version of the Quran, definitely not true. It's not some kind of a divine. It's a very mediocre book. And as far as the way it's written, and the third, definitely not from what I'm saying directly in the code. It does not look like Arabic at all. Yeah, too many assumptions. And also, again, I don't even know how this holds water with like this insistence that it's not possible. Irrefutable. There's no such thing in the world as is irrefutable. That word should not exist. My experience is closer to Hebrew, numbers and symbols. There you go. Thank you, Arikos. Oh, by the way, I saw your email. I responded. Let's have a conversation. Tell me what days are good for you, and we can jump on a call. When you use the other colored lasers, do people see same different additions? Oh, great question. They all see the same structures, I think. I think that what I see with the arrows, it takes some people some time to see, including also the buckyballs. So that takes people some time to see. Also, I don't know why people, and I don't know. I mean, this is like obviously, I'm not saying it is the case. I'm saying I have no idea, truly. But I don't know why people don't consider that maybe actually all the religions are not talking about the same God. Why is nobody considering that? Why is people not considering that maybe Allah or what the whatever that is that the Muslims believe they call him Allah, right? What if it's not the same entity as Jehovah? Is it really that hard to comprehend? If they're real, why would they be the same guy? Because it doesn't sound like the same kind of inspiration at all, if you know what I mean. Overlapping the laser colors, yeah, great question. No, it doesn't change anything. You just kind of see like a combination of both, because most of them are monotheistic religions, right? But then one of them might be wrong, or both of them are wrong, and they're not the only entities in existence, which is, of course, much more likely the case. Whenever anybody, like, I think that at this point in history, this is the thing that kind of truly blows my mind. I think now in 2024, the belief that you truly have the one truth should be unfathomable to people. It should be an unthinkable thought, unless you're a complete narcissist. I don't understand how this is still a thing for people. Like this lack of humility of like, no, trust me, I got it. Really, after 2 million years of our ancestors getting shit dead wrong every time. Oh no, but you got it. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, that makes sense. Matthew, come back on, brother. You're gonna have to request, Matthew, because I can't pull you up unless you request.
Hello, hello.
Yep, you're back on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Amazing.
I'm about to go to bed. What time? Where are you from?
Uh,
Are you on another side of the world?
I don't know. Well, I'm in LA. Where are you?
LA. Okay, I'm on the East Coast.
Cool. Well, yeah. Yesterday I started at 11:30 my time after filming. So yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So I'll let you. So here's what we're gonna do, because I do want to respect your time as well, and I want you to get your beauty sleep. It's very important. So here's what I'm gonna do.
I'm retired. I got nothing going on.
Okay, got it. So just so you know something about, and it sounds like you're totally like good vibes, and you probably also take it that way. But I want to make something super clear. The way I'm engaging with you is the way that I'm talking to everybody, and especially because I this is a form of respect that I pay, and I want people to understand that, which is that if I cut you off, it's because I feel like we need to clarify this point, not because I'm trying to drown your point at all. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to let you talk until a point where I feel like, okay, I definitely have to like clarify some things, and then I'll give you some points that I think you missed when you left that I was talking about, but I will repeat them because I think they're important. So go ahead, the stage is yours.
Well,
do you remember where you by the way, do you remember where you stopped? So you stopped where you were telling me about the.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I want to relate it to your channel as well, because I love the simulation relationship.
Sure. So at least in the laser, it's definitely not Arabic. 100% not. It is actually look closer to Hebrew, if anything.
What's that?
So at least what you see in the laser, like a direct observation, forget about the theoretical stuff. It is definitely 100% not even close to looking like Arabic letters. It looks like Hebrew, if anything else. It looks like Japanese and Hebrew.
Well, I was just, I really just hopped on to try to give you one thing I see happening since I became a Muslim is that Islam gets wrapped in with in generalized into all of the religions, and I understand why.
Repeat this last part. Repeat the last part.
That?
Repeat the last part you said.
I think I understand why. There's a lot of propaganda and people. There's a lot of preconceived notion about religion. And I think some of that gets supplanted on their understanding or assumption of what Islam is or is not. So that's really why I wanted to come up here, because of the debate point that we were talking about. What really is, I also am with you. I don't like this. Oh, I feel a certain way, or, these combinations of words feel like it's right, and I don't have anything to back it up, right? So, just saying that because you have a subjective experience is not going to cut it when it comes to trying to understand the simulation we find ourselves in. So, the interesting part I found about Islam is, and this is where my overgeneralizations in the chat don't do it justice, because there's just so much of it. The evidence that the scripture, that the Quran, came from the creator of this simulation is shocking. That's what I'm saying from an information science perspective. I'm an information scientist. All the other religions you're mentioning, and I did comparative religion studies, I am still blown away at the amount of evidence that Islam has that the book is of divine origin. I wouldn't be able to cover it all. I can tell you some of my favorites that really got me and shook me at my core. But one way that I like to introduce it to people to kind of liken it, in the U.S., we go to college to study things like business and economics, okay? In the Middle East, they go to college and you can actually spend 4 years studying over 300 cases, or let's say, cases. I would call cases, or, observations or testable thing. I don't know what the best wrapper for the word here is. Over 300 individual instances of the Quran's evidence for divine origin. People spend 4 years studying all 300 plus of those cases. So when a religion is making a claim like that, which no other religion is making, that's where you're trying to say, what is the difference between this and rabbinical Judaism? I had a funny thing that got cut off, and maybe this is why God doesn't want me to say it. It's the Jews are claiming that their scripture's unaltered or not corrupted, for example, right? But then it can't pass certain common sense challenges like, why does God Almighty have to create a rainbow in order to remind himself not to destroy us again?
And the Quran doesn't have ridiculous claims?
It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. I would.
Should we pull up some? Should we pull up some?
Absolutely. I've read the Quran now 5 times.
Okay.
In English, and it has never. I've never found any spot, and I've challenged multiple people that I've helped introduce it to. There are not anything ridiculous like that. I've read the Bible as well when I was younger, and that is just full. There's
a. Wait, I don't remember if it was in the Hadith or in the Quran, so I don't want to get. I don't want to.
That's okay.
Yeah, so it's either in the Quran or the Hadith.
Anyone that you can
but
think of, even if you paraphrase.
The fact. Okay, so I actually don't remember if it's in the Quran or Hadith. But it's in one of them. But there's an overt and direct permission to lie if it's in defense of the faith.
This is called. I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
But that was only to save one's life. I think there were certain conditions on it.
No, not a person, in defense of the faith.
I will look into that. I think I've ran into that claim as well.
Okay.
I can check my notes.
Which, by the way, explains a lot of things. Which, by the way, explains a lot of things.
Well, no, it does. Well, hang on here a second. I would actually like to...
There's actually no emphasis on the sanctity of life.
Let's take it one at a time. So first off, the lying, I do not think that's permissible. It was, to my recollection, it was under the conditions where you were in fear for death of your life. And if they're lying on behalf of the religion, for me, for example, let's look at not what idiots do. Okay, so every religion has its idiots. Okay,
but it's in the whole. It's in one of the. I don't remember if it's in the holy book, but it's the Hadith. Is the Hadith considered to be a holy book or no?
Quran. This is not in the Quran.
Hold on. Let me see.
Yeah, if you can find it, I'd be happy to look at it. But
sure.
One thing I definitely want to focus on is I don't like to look at the patterns of idiots. We have to study the scripture. Everybody has their idiots. The KKK is a Christian organization. Does that mean every Christian's a Nazi? I don't think so.
No, Mike. This was only a response to your direct challenge of finding things in the Quran that are ridiculous. So hold on. This is actually fun because this is definitely not something I thought I would be talking about. So it's kind of fun
the way it's related is because the argument I'm making is it is the instruction manual for the simulation. It is the best core belief system to attack the simulation in, and then the Islamic mystical esoteric teachings teach us actually the core fundamentals of energy dynamics inside the simulation. That's what's profound once you start going deeper into it.
Did you I think you disappeared at that part what I was talking about, but you know that they did the same, all of these claims that they claimed, at least in the Old Testament, they did the exact same predictions, almost all of them, with Huckleberry Finn. So they took Huckleberry Finn and they basically showed that you can do it with any book with a certain amount, if the book is a certain length, you can play these games with any book of predictions and ratios and secrets about science, all of that stuff.
Well, we would want to look at definitely specific examples, wouldn't you think? Like, for example, I could just rattle off a few of my favorite aspects of the Quran that bring in scientific knowledge that I can't imagine how this would be possible other than aliens or the creator of the simulation. That's what
let's take let's take that claim. Do you know, and I'm not putting in on the spot, like if you can't find it right now it's fine, but do you have a way to maybe pull it up, like that specific example you're giving? Like give me one example where you found that it's just like it can't possibly be anything else. Just one example of that.
So the example that I like the best is the Quran has a description of the embryonic cycle that the human embryo goes through in the womb. And there's it is profound and prolific in the way it's presented. It's presented also in a very interesting metaphoric way, but it comes with a side story. So I'll try to keep this brief. The leading scientist in the West who helped invent ultrasound and all these things that he used up until I think it was 2013 or 20, somewhere between 2013 and 2017. This scientist releases his masterwork. He helped invent ultrasound, and he said, here is my best approximation at the embryonic cycle of the human embryo in the woman's womb. Okay, we would like to adopt this as the standard for, medical practice across the board. He presents it to the National Medical Organization, whatever it is.
Okay.
The Muslims approach him and say, hey, read this passage from the Quran. I can give you the chapter and title so you can read it.
Is it 23:12 to 14?
It's the one if you Google it quick about the embryonic cycle.
It says, I looked it up on ChatGPT. It says, Nutfa, drop of fluid. The process begins with a drop of fluid or sperm, which initiates human development. Alaka, clinging substance, the sperm. Mudga, chewed-like lump.
So, there's a lot of things here. So one word I'll focus on here actually is Mindafyak. So the word Mindafyak was never uttered before this book was released. And what it means is a self-propelling liquid. So this word at a time...
Here it says chewed-like lump.
Okay. Mindafyak means a self-propelling liquid. It's describing the sperm and the way it moves. So this to me was very interesting, right? Again, so how 1,400 years ago, before we had microscopes, etc. I didn't finish my story. After that scientist reads the Quran, he does two things. Number one, he becomes a Muslim. Then he takes the Quranic description back to the U.S. board, and I can get the story for you.
Okay.
My mom and I read it.
Sure.
He goes, forget my life's work. We're going to take the Quranic description of the embryonic cycle, right? So this is another example of the Quran actually offering a superior description of the embryonic cycle compared to the latest technology developed by, you see where, so that's an example. The other one is there's a...
Wait, so why did Islam suppress... Because yes, they were one of the meccas of basically what we would call the intellectual and scientific development.
That's great. Yes.
Yeah. But why did they then suppress all of science?
Suppress all of science?
Oh yeah, they basically fell back to the Dark Ages and never recovered from it. That's essentially what happened.
They helped get us out of the Dark Ages.
Oh no. They basically there was a particular period of the Islam religion when I can find you the year, where they basically came up with this idea. There was a particular imam that just basically said that the work of science is basically the work of Satan, and then from that point on till this day.
In the Quran, there's specific passages that instruct each of us to always seek knowledge. Seek knowledge for the things that you believe and seek its evidence and understanding. So you can't do that without science. So, as a Muslim, I would take the direct commandment out of the Quran over the opinion of someone like this.
Sure, fair point.
To my knowledge, science is not discouraged. There was a particular
it's not in the Quran, but it was definitely a very particular imam that was very influential for the Muslim world, which is basically what made it sink, as far as development of science. But my question, and I take your point. That is a fair point. That if you have a book that is considered a holy book in a belief, yes, you would take the word of that versus the word of somebody who might have been confused the entire religion. That is possible. I'll give you that. My question to you is, even with that example, is your argument that this is just one example of many, that if I'm aware of all of them, I would say that it's extremely unlikely that this would not be the language and the religion through which the creator of the simulation would speak through? Would that be an accurate representation of what you're trying to say?
That's correct. The sum total of the evidence becomes shocking. I mean, I spent 2 years studying all the deep depths of it, and I just kept finding more things that I would never find in any other religion. And I'm like, you know what? Holy shit, that makes me scratch my head. How is this happening?
Okay,
And
so
it was quite remarkable. But I'm using it as a lead into our negative energy theory discussion as well, because some of the things underneath it, once you kind of accept the idea, I'm not trying to put it inside you, but this is my own journey.
sure.
Once you realize that the Quran is actually the minified, perfect belief system to attack the world with. Attack the world, I mean, you're going to face trials, tribulations, tests, a variety of human experiences. This Quran gives you the perfect minified belief system to gauge what you are actually experiencing.
It's an interesting choice of words, though, right? Attack the world.
Well, do you think living life is a passive experience? To me, engage.
Well, attack is not the word I would think. No, it's not the word that I would think to use when I'm
engaging.
Sure, but the fact is,
I think we're also in the middle of spiritual warfare, so there's a lot of good versus evil out there. But
sure.
I admit I used the wrong word.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you used exactly the right word.
Yeah, I understand where there would be contention over that word,
sure.
Because I don't take any moment lightly. So in my mind, it's
well, he just says it. No, so like, by the way, this is not to take anything. It's like, this is not my impression. This is literally what very big percentage of leadership in the Muslim world today, and not just today, by the way, this kind of rhetoric is used very clearly, and it is a religion that is very openly saying they will take over everything they can, and there will be a world caliphate. So like, they take by controlling, and then they say, because we have the true word of the creator of the universe, which all religions say, they say we're going to do it in the way of conquering and, yes, attacking. So it's not like you use the wrong word. This is literally spoken by throughout the centuries. This is what the rhetoric and the narrative is.
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple bad presuppositions that I want to sort
Sure.
out in what you just described.
Sure.
That number one, I'm trying to think which one we should touch on first. Number one is that when we talk about taking over the world, like, so what was the exact phrase you were like?
That's what they use.
Well, but what was the how did you phrase that? That
the rising of the world caliphate will be by conquering. Conquer is the word that also that this is how what's his name, Muhammad actually used and described himself. So
no, okay, so let's back up.
Sure.
First off, it is the Crusades that spread Christianity.
That is not true. No, that is not true. They were a response to the violence from the Muslim world. That is absolutely not true.
I think you would need to go back and look at history on that one.
No, brother. I would strongly encourage. No, I've looked very deeply into this, so I would strongly encourage you reread that part of the history. The Crusades were a direct response to a Muslim violence that was getting out of control, which is the same thing you're saying now.
Check on that for sure.
Sure.
But in my understanding,
I'm not saying the Crusades were a good thing. The Crusades then themselves got out of control, but the beginning of the Crusades were a direct response to a Muslim violence that was getting out of control.
Yeah. This Muslim violence, right? So what I understand from my research is that they are asking countries to let them make their claim and let the people hear it. In countries where they said, that's fine, come in, and they had the deals, if people convert, they had made negotiations in peaceful interactions where their ask is to let humanity know that this is the claim, that this Quran is the direct word of the Creator.
And what happens if what you say if what you say does not match what the caliphate expects you to say?
Well, first thing, we have to go back to the Quran. If it doesn't match the Quran, I don't buy into any of that. That's more politics than it is.
No. I can tell. No, that is, again, this is just a direct response that Islam. They're very clear on this. There's no ambiguity there. You can voice what you believe. What is expected is that you accept Allah as the creator. So if you don't do that, okay, then you have two options. One, off with your head, and the other one, you live as a serf. You live in a lower level of under the Muslim rule, and you will not be touched and be protected, but you have to pay special
I don't know
taxes.
exactly where you're getting that, because in the Quran it says directly, if you kill one innocent human being, then it's like you killed the whole of humanity.
Sure.
So,
it also says a lot about killing the infidels. So you cherry picking there.
Which is in a chapter about the war that they were engaged in, has no relevance or command to what we should be doing today. You actually have to look at that one in context. This is one that comes up all the time. That was because the Muslims weren't fighting back to the oppression that was occurring. And this is Allah, which, by the way, in English translates simply to a one true God, the one true God.
Sure.
That's what Allah in English means, one true God. Okay, so they were waiting for the command to fight back. That command came and is telling them to fight back at that time, and should not be taken as a modern day interpretation to fight and kill anyone who disagrees.
No, you get to voice, you get to first go through the due process where you get to voice what you believe. But if you voice if what you voice does not match the belief, then you have these two options.
They have options where you can pay additional tax.
That's what I just said. That's what I just said. You either get killed. That's what I just said. You either get killed, or
there's no kill. I don't think they're killing.
No, absolutely. That's the only other option. So you either live in the lower level where you pay extra taxes. It's not just taxes. You live in a lower level of society, so you're not part of the same level. Not as Muslims. Okay, if you live in a Muslim society, you get to come through. Okay, but if you live in that society, you're not considered as the same level of citizen, and you pay extra taxes on top of that. If you don't want to do that, off with your head. That is the only other option, and it has absolutely.
No, that's not right.
Okay,
it's not right.
All right,
I've been to Salt in the Middle East, where there are Christian churches on the same corner as a Muslim mosque, and Christians and Muslims are living together. All the businesses have Christians and Muslims working together at this. I actually did salary payments for Muslims and non-Muslims in a Middle Eastern country.
Hey guys, just to be clear, hold on, guys, don't bring Palestine and Israel into this. This is too heavy for this discussion. We're talking about some fundamental stuff about religions, and yeah, it sounds like adjacent, but don't bring this into this chat, because we're not going to resolve this here, and it's not helping. 1 second, brother. All the versions in the Quran that talk. Oh, he disappeared again. Oh well. So he, guys, just to be clear, I do respect the fact that he's, he's bringing, he really is trying to actually prove it from that perspective. I agree that there needs to be a particular claim. So he did provide one. So he was talking about, I need to look deeper into this. So he basically talked about the fact that in the Quran, I asked him if there's one proof that he can give that the Quran has any validity of like knowing something in advance, let's say, and he mentioned the example of the Quran describing the embryonic cycle, which at least according to ChatGPT it does. Now, obviously, it needs a deeper explanation and looking into it, and it by no means suggested that necessarily means that this would be the channel through which the simulators would speak. But at least he definitely took a step in the right direction, where he basically provided what I asked for very directly. And he says that there's a lot of other claims like that. It's a coherent argument line, at least. So I want to be very clear on this. It describes the sound in space. Also, Matthew, again, you're more than welcome to ask for the thing. I'm not bouncing you off. I don't know what you're bouncing off. You're more than welcome to come back on. Self-propelled liquid waterfalls, tools of claim. Yeah. So also this here again, I have to look much deeper into this because I obviously didn't come prepared for this conversation. But at least here and ChatGPT seems to be super woke here, to be quite honest, just because it has a lot of these like keywords of like don't want to misinterpret or like all that kind of stuff. But it says that mudja is chewed like lump. Now I can look again, obviously, and probably should look deeper into this. But here's the exact quote, so you can judge for yourself. And again, you can say that it is taken out of context, but that is the quote. We created man from an extract of clay. Then we made him a drop in place of settlement, firmly fixed. Then we made the drop into clinging clot. And we made the clot into a lump. That makes sense. That actually tracks. And we made from the lump bones. And we covered the bones with flesh. Then we developed him into another creation. So it is interesting that it's saying we, which is, by the way, the same as the way that Yahweh is described in the Old Testament, which is always we. Oh, here it is. And you're back, brother.
Yeah, I don't know what keeps happening.
No.
I'd like to step back on the summary because I think the crux of the debate is, do we have a religious scripture that provides enough claims and evidence that you can say, holy shit, this might actually be from the creator of this simulation? Right? And that's the whole reason
But why postulate it there at all? That's what I don't understand. Why, even with all the claims in the world, why would you make this connection of it being the only channel that the simulators can possibly speak through? Why would the simulators choose one stream of ideas to come speak through? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I have several personal justifications for probably why that occurred.
Sure.
And that's because the Quran portrays life as a test or an examination. And so the reason for this would be because we are in a realm where we are not supposed to be all-knowing. We seem to have an unlimited capped potential. We all kind of feel like we're something more than we are. I don't want to overgeneralize here. I'm just giving you some sentiment about what it's like to be here, right? It's like, this world is all fucked up. Look, there's got to be something better than this.
Well, I feel like we're a lot better than the times in which all these religions came to be. That's for sure the case.
So I'm saying that I wouldn't have even looked into the, like, I think you're saying, well, why is religion that vehicle? It's because
no, not why religion. Why would there be one source of thought? So to me, it's pretty clear. Again, I don't know if you've ever meditated, but if you get even a little bit into meditation, doesn't matter what kind, it becomes very clear that there are truths about the universe, or universal truth about experience at least, that are available to you without saying one word about any story. So to me, it's pretty clear that whatever the ultimate truth is, it would not need. There's actually a phrase, I don't remember who coined it, but the phrase is, the truth does not require your participation. Whatever true is true. Totally. So it's like you don't need one stream of ideas to convey the ultimate truth. You have it should be available to somebody who was born in a cave and died in a cave.
Hang on.
Yeah.
I think we're taking too many steps forward.
Okay.
The claim is this is the perfect minified belief system.
I would highly disagree with that. First of all, just reading again, I only read the Quran in English, but in English it is an extremely mediocre book.
Then what I should do is maybe pass you a link that lets you read the Quran grouped by topic. That is one reason I think people miss what's happening here, because of the way that the Quran is written and conveyed. But when you read it filtered on topics that are relevant, and you read the coherent guidance on each topic with all of the verses together,
Sure.
that may change.
Yeah, email it to me.
Because I agree that it can become repetitive, slightly boring at times, but it's repeating certain like belief system mantras back to the meditation. I practice 5 meditations a day. There's mantras included in the religion. But backing up, I'm saying that the reason that I even got on this train was because the religion was making that claim. I said, this couldn't be real. Like, I looked in all the other religions. I'm an information scientist. I
Sure.
studied many different aspects. We talked about scientific papers and things of this nature. And the thing I was trying to convey is that I had the same sentiment as you, like when I came on the stream. But it was shocking to me when I went down the rabbit hole of, is this claim true? This religion is saying this is the instruction manual from the creator. Is this true or not? And I'm telling you, after 2 years, I am still convinced that claim is true, and there's a lot of evidence for it. We're just touching on the high level here.
Sure.
But that's sort of what brought me up here, because I think, well, the vehicle for the creator to speak to its creation, okay, we can rule a few things out. I don't think that comes through personal revelation. And the reason I say it is because I could go out like I kill someone. Oh, God told me to do that. Like, the creator of the universe told me to kill you. Right? So this would just be a basic example of how could personal revelation lead to a completed belief system. And again, in the West, we're taught to piece together our
Wait, I think I got lost.
Set of ideology.
I got lost in this point. I don't know why this point is relevant. What are you saying? You saying that it's too prone for confusion? One person trying to think that they're dialed into God, so you need a whole belief system?
Ever land on the what I'm saying is personal revelation would not be the vehicle that the creator would release a work of this magnitude.
How can it be anything else?
What's that?
How can
it be anything else?
Anything else but personal revelation?
Well, because how could this?
How does it make more sense to present the work of a divine being through a convoluted, complex system of ideas that goes through infinite number of filters, millions and millions of filters, which are different humans, versus a direct communication to each and every one of us, which God can absolutely do?
Okay, so you're proposing that the vehicle would be to send the same personal revelation to every human.
Of course.
That is the vehicle?
How can it be any other vehicle?
I would say because humans still would have the free will to lie, right? So how you would have to have a divine revelation in a work.
How does that change if you have a whole belief system? People can still lie.
Beliefs. I'm saying that
you just have another complicated factor. You have another complicating factor, which is now you have this like another level of confusion that is propelled by very large number of people who kind of weighed in on it.
Backing up, how could you differentiate between divine personal revelation and someone lying?
You can't, and this is exactly the point. The point is
the problem. Quran has enough provable evidence in the shocking amount there that I'm referring to that you can prove that it's not a personal revelation.
If there's something,
that it has so much what?
If there's something that religious people prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, that is they don't care about evidence whatsoever.
Islam is only based on evidence.
So that's a claim you make. That's a claim you make, sure, but I don't know that to be the case.
I would like to know, because I don't know any claims that Muslims are making that are not based on reasonable evidence. That's an interesting question. I mean, it'd be interesting to ask ChatGPT that.
That is a very convoluted question, because you can ask that is the truth about religion in general. So for example, here I'll give you kind of like the the position where I'm coming from to this kind of a discussion. And I truly appreciate the fact that you're actually answering questions very directly, which is refreshing. So this makes this conversation relatively easy and fun. So
Oh yeah, dude, I love talking to you.
there you go. So my question would be, for example, from the perspective of physics, right? I am not like a physicist, like in academia, right? But I know enough things in physics to tell you, okay, if I'm presenting an idea and you ask me, like, why do you think that relativity holds water? Like, why? It's like I'm not going to start going into every single aspect to, like, the specifics of why, how exactly we calculate certain things from the field equations and how it matches observation, all that stuff. You can do that, but that in a discussion like this, it would be kind of like it's like pulling teeth. It's too many things. So I would go into like high level arguments. So for example, I would say, look, as far as we can tell from a certain scale, from the second that it was conceived, the theory literally described not just all the stuff that was known back then, observations, but every single consecutive discovery we made about the space since, including 2 years ago and 3 years ago. So things that Einstein could not have possibly thought about because they would know that we didn't even think in these directions. The theory is so true that the relationships that it describes hold basically universally, right? That is a type of truth, I would say. Now, is it complete? Which, by the way, which is why I told you shouldn't use the word irrefutable, because it is still not irrefutable. It is still very much refutable if we find new evidence, right? But when you're talking about like ultimate things, like the word of the creator of the universe, you're running into the same problem you run with infinities, which is that you can't actually know what it's like to be in the mind of God. So you're postulating very large number of things, and then you base all the arguments on top of that, which is a house of cards. Because you can, because we're a finite being, anything we say about an potential infinite mind will always suffer from the same disjointed problem, which is that we don't really know what it's like to be in the mind of God. So any interpretation of anything we think came from God, because a lot of people in the world think that they have access to the word of the creator of the universe, right? So if you have competing ideas in that space, you don't have any way to determine which one actually tracks anything of.
Question.
Sure.
Have you studied Islam's conception of the creator?
But that is so hold on, I'm not avoiding your question, I will answer it, but this, because it goes to what I wanted to ask you a second ago. I'm not avoiding your question, I will answer it, but I want to ask you before, but the same analysis you gave the thing, do you also speak Hebrew?
No.
Okay, so at least you can admit that you haven't looked as deeply into the Old Testament, and at least not specifically in the more mainstream, but specifically in more mystical schools like the Zohar and the Kabbalah. You couldn't have possibly looked as deep and actually understand the Hebrew and understand how profound that is. So at least you know that you have one point of comparison you haven't considered in the same depth, right?
I've looked in Kabbalah, yes, and I am aware, and I've watched some lectures about the topics that you're talking about. I find that
no, but you don't speak the language, so that's the difference. So if you speak the language, you can kind of understand that truly the meaning of these words.
I know.
Yeah, so that's, and again, this is not to break your argument.
I only did that, in all honesty, I went down, I tried that with Arabic, and it was really working. I was really getting a sense of it. I just.
So because the claim, and by the way, I want to actually. I really want to say that you did a really good job at conveying what you were trying to say, and you actually enlightened me of some things I did not know about the Quran, and I will actually look a little deeper into that because it is interesting.
The same. I added multiple things to my list last time. I researched several new topics last time I was up here. You gave me 2 new ones.
Right, but for this particular conversation, because the claim you came in with for this conversation is that Islam and the Arabic are the only, when you look deeper into it, you concluded that it's the only language and religion that could have come through. I'm telling you, there's another religion that is a competitor that you couldn't have possibly looked as deeper into.
That's not my claim.
Okay.
I'm going to be very clear about what my claim is.
Sure.
I think that the claim that I was making is that Islam has the evidence to back up what it's saying it knows, where I felt you were overgeneralizing all religions or certain ideologies where they go with this, I know it, right? And they're not providing evidence for their claims. And so I just wanted to try to break Islam off because that is a different animal. We're talking about countries and a religion that spent, instead of focusing on capitalism, they try to understand what the hell they just experienced.
Right? So I don't know if you know this, but if there's one thing that this is why I mentioned specifically the rabbinical tradition, because there's a lot of different movements inside Judaism, right? But specifically the rabbinical tradition, if there's one thing that they're actually really good at and very important to them, is the whole discernment thing and the questioning of, and a very close kind of thinking to how you would see things in the physics community, actually. So like the proof thing is very important to them. And they analyze things to like no end. Huh?
I think it's the same thing on the Muslim side, to be honest.
Sure,
Just
but
so you know, Muslims and Jews believe in the same one true God. If you ask a Muslim and a Jew if they believe in the same God, they do.
Sure. I don't know if that's necessarily a relevant point, because we're talking about. Wait. So what is the claim? I thought that you're claiming that the Muslim tradition.
I think the claim is that the Quran is the only holy scripture that has enough weight of evidence that we should seriously consider it as a candidate for the real baseline instruction manual for the simulation we find ourselves in.
Okay, so my claim back is that I think, and again, I don't know enough about Islam on that level to say yay or nay. I have some understanding of Judaism to tell you that it definitely, you have a competing set of ideas here that for the same title, but in order to truly kind of go into the nitty gritty of this, and it might be interesting to do, I would have to read up a little bit more about it.
Yeah, no worries. We can park that one there.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I'll leave you with, I'll probably head to bed here.
Sure.
The reason we need this is what why I want to split it off, and could become interesting to refer back to if I get invited back up again.
You're always invited.
Yeah, thanks. I'm always kind of trying to bring it back to my negativity theory. Now,
sure,
we would need some sort of ruler to gauge how positive or negative a certain occurrence is. And what my claim is that in my theory of negativity, Islam provides the objective moral and ethics needed to calculate the true energy dynamics of this simulation. Back to our topic about where is negative energy and how will we find, detect, store, utilize negative energy, which will essentially unlock anti-gravity systems. There's a whole bunch of follow-on things that we talked about in the last call, right?
Okay.
So I don't believe in subjective morality, and this is a big change, and this is the last one I'll leave, and why Islam, I believe, provides such a gem.
Okay.
It provides a perfect, what I believe, sort of ruler for good and evil, and you need that to calculate the true energy dynamics of the simulation we find ourselves in.
Got it. So the balance between.
For next time.
Sure. Okay. No, great. That was very fruitful. I appreciate you.
All right. Take care, man.
You too, brother.
Have a great rest of your stream.
All right. Thank you so much.
Catch you later.
Okay. Great. That was a perfect arc. I think that was the most productive conversation I've had with a discerning point, or maybe not even a discerning point, but a point that there's some disagreement there that I've ever experienced. So I appreciate that tremendously. I wish more conversations could actually take place in this way. I'm not congratulating myself for that. I think Matthew did a really good job at presenting the case and being aware of the fact that there's a disagreement there, and then being sensitive to the disagreement. I really find that this, I don't know why people are having such a hard time with this, which is just to actually listen and like consider that there's somebody else who is talking who maybe thought about this maybe just as much of the opposite side. The only other case I can think of that happened, at least in the public sphere, was that that big first explosion and then friendship between Sam Harris and Majid Nawaz. That was an interesting and a beautiful kind of like story. I don't know if you guys know, but basically, Majid Nawaz was he's obviously a Muslim, and he came from a very radical part of Islam, and he spent quite a few years in the Egyptian prison, and then he kind of reformed himself to a much more moderate, and then he founded a foundation in England to help kind of reform a lot of the radical parts of Islam through conversation, all that stuff. And then he was in a debate with Hayyan Hirsi Ali against whether or not Islam is a religion of peace. And then Sam Harris, because he's friends with Hayyan Hirsi Ali, he was in the audience. And then in the after dinner, they literally almost got into a fist fight because Sam kind of like maybe not very wisely, but in a way that eventually led to something good. He basically challenged him and said, well, now that the cameras are off, come on, can you admit that you know that Islam is not a religion of peace? And then obviously it didn't go well, and it became like a very big thing and almost got into a fist fight. And later years down the line, Sam reached out and was like, hey, do you think we can have a conversation? They did, and then they actually wrote a book together. And I really found this kind of very encouraging, this kind of like, collaboration and understanding from both ends. And it doesn't matter what we believe. I think if more conversations can take this kind of shape, I mean, in the end of the day, this will be a much better situation for everybody, I think. Let's see some of the comments. So yeah, by the way, I'm not ignoring you guys' comments. When you guys commenting during a conversation, it's just kind of hard to keep track of, of the other speaker and then also reading the comments. So I'm reading some of them. And I mean, obviously, I know that a lot of these questions were allotted for Matthew, and they were specifically designed probably to challenge some of his assertions. But I can tell you that, again, if I want to steel man his position to the extent that I can, a lot of these things about, child marriage and all that stuff, I mean, the way that I would answer that is very simple, which is like all these holy books, all of them, they have some, again, in the Old Testament, you have Deuteronomy, which is like one of the most barbaric books ever. So it exists in all the older books, which is why I would claim that these are not direct interpretations of the divine word of anybody. But they might be inspired by one. And again, this is not something that I, ever entertained actually is even possibly true. I only came to that through my discovery and some of the elements that I'm now seeing in the space. I have to reconsider. And I spoke about this before. It is a very uncomfortable process. But in the context of that, I have to entertain these things, and I have to kind of, put different goggles on. And yeah, I am also just me. I'm also very surprised when people are the Buddhist framework doesn't make more sense to them. I'm never sure why that's the case, but I guess that's why we're all different, and that's part of the beauty. God could just show up. Well, maybe God could not just show up. Maybe what God truly is a type of a thing that if it shows up, it just basically eliminates anything that it shows up in its presence because of the level of power or whatever. Catherine, I would agree the truth is beyond subjective experience, but as you know, in this modern world, we have a lot of postmodern ideas and postmodern adjacent ideas, and that I find it to be a mind bias, to be honest. I don't even know how people get to that, because it is by itself a truth claim, right? The claim that there is no truth is a truth claim, which is absurd. The main claim is that there is an invisible man in the sky. No, that is not the claim. It's much more sophisticated than that. I think nobody really believes in that. How is that based on evidence? Again, I think we spoke about how he at least provided one form of evidence, which I'm surprised, actually. I have to look into what other possible explanations are there. Might be later interpretations of it or things like that. This needs a further investigation. It all came from Sanskrit, Catherine. You are absolutely correct. And Hinduism is monolithic. So Buddhism is a little different than Hinduism. I don't know if something else was mentioned on top, but and you're actually right. Hinduism technically believes that there is an ultimate creator, that all the other gods they believe in, they're representations of. Once again, you're absolutely right. Spot on. Buddhism is a little different because the Buddha himself, as I mentioned before, he never spoke about any of the metaphysical stuff. He only taught a technique that's supposed to help you get. But the Buddha was very big on there are no masters. You are your own master. And that's the only way it can be. And this is my contention too, which is if the truth of the divine should be available for humans, it should be available for everybody, no matter where you are, no matter what your story. If you're born and are raised by wolves and you live your entire life in the jungle, you should still have access to the understanding of the divine if the divine, in fact, speaks to all humans. And that cannot come through a story. It's just like that eliminates that possibility. I appreciate your karaoke. Thank you. I did enjoy the way it went. Many struggle to differentiate between perception and perspective with respect. I agree. Very well said. You can't sleep now. A nice, we're complimenting you here, Matthew. A nice sanctuary from the often rude interactions on other live streams. I appreciate it. I hope we can bring more of that. Check the one where the Quran describes what it sounds like in space. Oh, that would be interesting. Yeah, thank you. Also, if you can send me that link that you were telling me about, Matthew, with the different interpretations and all of that, I will definitely go through that. I have some free time coming up soon, and I'll try and knock down as much of this as possible. Let me see if I can do this in real time. Passage in the Quran that speaks about sound in space. Explicit. So woke ChatGPT says the Quran does not explicitly discuss sounds in space in the scientific sense as we understand it today. However, there are verses that refer to cosmic phenomena, which some people may interpret as hints of broader scientific concepts, including sound in space. One such verse, often discussed in this context, is the Surah Fusilat. Thank you for the rose, Catherine. I appreciate it. Then he directed himself to the heaven while it was smoke and said to it and to the earth, come willingly or by compulsion. You gotta laugh there, man. I mean, that's a direct quote from the Quran, which is what I was telling you. I mean, I know this refers to something else, but that motif repeats a lot. They said, we have come willingly. If that wasn't the most Italian boss sentence ever, come willingly or by compulsion, your choice. We'll come willingly. This verse involves the heaven and the earth responding to God's command, which some interpret as a metaphysical reference to sound or communication in the cosmos. If this is the quote, you have to admit this is very flimsy. However, it's not a direct mention of sound traveling through space, obviously, in the modern scientific understanding, or in any understanding, where sound requires a medium like air or water to propagate, and outer space is largely a vacuum. Islamic scholars usually emphasize that the Quran's description are metaphysical and theological rather than scientific, focusing on the majesty of God's creation rather than providing technical explanation about what nature and sound space like. Now, before I even look at the comments, Matthew, I'm sure that probably what you said, that is not the passage. That is not no problem. This is just entertaining to me, obviously, which you can appreciate. I'm very open to whatever you're going to send me. I'm sure you're going to send me some materials, and we'll go over the specifics of what you wanted to say, and then we can discuss that. Quranverse.net. It sorts of all passages by topic. Quranverse.net. Hold on. Quranverse.net. There it is. Okay. Oh, trust me, there's many that makes me laugh out loud. Keanu Reeves, John Wick 4. Well, yeah, like I always say, I do have 2 dogs, so don't fuck with my dogs. Oh, I'll grab it. There's really good YouTube video. If you search there, you'll see where they play. They play the sound and show the passage on how it's described. Okay, I will look. So, but if that was the passage, I will tell you right away that that's definitely, if what people think that's what it means is like, that's a stretch. I would say it's one of the mothers of all stretches to say that that means sound. Um. Oh, okay. If it wasn't it, then I'm happy. Literally describes the sound. Can you send me? Do you know? Can you find the verse? Just give me the verse, because that's what all the ChatGPT gave me. If you find the verse, I'll put it up right now. I just want to read the verse itself. Thank you. Thank you for the likes, Catherine. I appreciate it. Yeah. So I love these chats. Like, because it never fails to surprise me. I never thought I'm gonna find myself talking about the Quran today. This is awesome. um, just making sure. Yeah, yeah, Sean. Good to see you, man. Oi, oi. Sorry, that came off very Jewish. Um, or actually, maybe what is it? Gaelic or Irish or oi. Miles per hour joint. Okay, let's see. Oh, we're at 2 hours mark. All right, we're okay. I'm gonna give. Are you searching for it, Matthew, or are you gonna only email it to me later, just so I know if I'm waiting for something or not? Okay, thanks. Okay, let me see here. Okay, how do we? Oh, it was an hadith. Okay, still interesting. What year was the hadith written? Uh, in the hadith, it talks about sound in space. And what year was the hadith written? When I am amicary, a mockery. I don't owe it. Does it let you send links? You don't. Wait, you don't owe it. What do you mean? What's up, Dusty? There's no specific hadith that directly talks about sound in space. In the modern scientific sense, same thing, kind of. The hadith literature primarily focuses on theological, ethical, legal, and practical aspects of Islamic life rather than detailed descriptions of the nature of the world's scientific terms. However, the Islamic tradition does include references to cosmic phenomena such as. Okay, so it basically gives me the same thing. So you're going to have to find the exact thing. Thank you, Mockery or Emicary. Appreciate you and appreciate everybody else. But yeah, I think. Yeah, see so let me maybe in the meanwhile tie it to something. Maybe leave you with a couple of thoughts that I think might be valuable. So one of the things that I, like I said in the beginning, struggle with is reconcile a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing in the space, which seems to be very technical and very specific, and seems to be pointing to a lot. What seems to be, I don't want to upset anybody up there, obviously, but seems to be the larger reality. So like if you ask yourself, what is the chicken and what is the egg? Are the simulators running, or is there like an ultimate god that then runs the ultimate simulations that look like technology to us, or is it that a highly technological civilization runs this simulation and many others, and they contain the elements and motifs of all of these gods? In other words, the gods are created inside the simulation, so they're kind of like under the simulators. And it seems to me, from what I'm seeing, is that it's the latter. Like it's actually like that way. So again, obviously, if all of this is real, I obviously don't want to upset God, but it's what it seems to me at the moment. And I hope I can be forgiven for having a limited capacity to understand all of that. But one of the things I'm finding very difficult is to reconcile what I'm saying with what people very convincingly talk about in terms of we're all becoming aware that we're all one, and then things like Matthew is talking about, and some of the people that are even very convinced of the return of Jesus Christ. Everybody are in the business of selling their point of view, and if only one of them is correct, then we obviously want to get it right. But one of the things I find interesting is that why would just getting it right be the thing? That sounds to me like a weird element that arises, that honestly has a lot more of a flavor of like a very primitive thinking. Because even if you believe, which might be the case, and this will probably offend a lot of the liberals here, but it's possible that humans, at least in the current stage of development, still we need certain rules to be able to kind of be the best versions of ourselves. It's possible. We want the ultimate freedom, and we think we have the ultimate freedom, but maybe, I'm saying maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe it is a fact about our current stage of development that at the moment we do need certain structures to operate in the optimal way, right? But even if that is the case, why would discussing it and disagreeing in order to investigate and find more, even in what you would call an ultimate vision of the holy whatever it is, why would saying a thing that is incorrect about it be some kind of a sin, let's say, right? Which in many traditions it's believed to be the case. That never makes sense to me. So like if you can have a conversation like that, and that conversation should be taken by the divine as, oh, they're trying to figure it out, versus, wouldn't the only thing that would matter really is if one carries a signature that cannot be reconciled with everything else? So like, wouldn't the thing that actually matters is the fact that somebody is beyond conversation? So like when you're trying to say, well, maybe you have your opinion, I have my opinion, we can live side by side without like colliding over which opinion is better, and we can just still agree on other things. And that is something that seems to be through the goggles of many religious traditions, that seems to be not a point of view that is tolerated. So it seems to me, I don't know, there's almost like, do we want a more liberal environment in the religious space, while at the same time some maintaining some concrete structure, like do not say the name of God in vain, things like that? It seems to be arbitrary, but at the same time, like I said in the other chat, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, maybe has something to do with kind of like wearing the badge spokesperson for God, when in fact all one is doing is asserting their own kind of dominance and power over other people, when they're claiming to be speaking for God, when what clearly nobody actually does. Let's see. Oh, there you go. What's up, Tonya? What's up, genius theorist? Good to see you. I think there's one additional possibility. The additional possibility is there's actually two purposes to the simulation, not one. It's probably not one or two. It's probably multiple. I would think it's the most. You're an information scientist, right? So I think that it's the greenest system possible. That what they do is they create infinite number of simulations from which you borrow from each and every one of them, you borrow a tiny amount of both energy and computational power, which achieves, first of all, you get infinite energy and infinite computational power, which is what they definitely need in order to run more simulations. What it also achieves is that you can do so many things with these simulations, from simulating and understanding what happens to certain physical regulations from all the different spaces. When conscious beings arise in these spaces, you can study their convictions, you can study how they look at their own environment, what stories they tell each other about it, what kind of predispensations they have depending on different environments, how they evolve, Which ones destroy themselves? Which one survives? Why was that? Were there ideas that led to this or that? And is there a common denominator between all the simulations that might point to some truth that is universal, including their reality? So that I think that is the holy grail, really. That's what it feels like to me. Which is something that a religious person would be very uncomfortable with, but essentially the idea that even God does not know why it's there. And it is interesting that in all the books, the gods are referring to themselves, the God, the one, refers to himself as we. It's in the Quran, and it is also in the Old Testament, which is interesting. I don't know why this fact is being overlooked all the time by people. But what else? And also, you can actually study that the element of choice, which I think relates to the previous point. Competitive facts. Who right? It's very primitive. Exactly. Should we assume there is a base reality? Yeah, I think we shouldn't. I think there is no base reality. I think it's all just one computational system, and it just layers of reality are being simulated one on top of another. Are the simulators simulated or in the base reality? Yeah, so I'm like I said, I don't think there's base reality. That's a majestic pronoun of we. It's like the royal we, but like beyond the royal. Think Queen of England. Yeah. We will defeat you. You in what army? Oh, this that army. Sorry. Okay. Um, I found the side with more words. Oh, awesome, Matt. Can you please put the options, captions, and auto translation? Oh, I don't think it does that in real time, Olga. I'm sorry. Um, my mom has joined the chat. It doesn't do the hi mom, love you. There's no I don't think they do that in lives yet, but they should. It sounds like you think all reality is base reality. Would that be a fair assessment? Yes, that is a fair assessment. Okay, guys. Well, listen, this was truly enjoyable, and I actually have a lot of energy to keep going today. But I do have to wash the floors from all the pee that happened yesterday and all the shooting. Puppy peed everywhere, so I need to leave enough energy to. There was this to be a base reality due to infinite regression. Yeah, just actually let me touch on this final point before we go. That is a fair point, but see this is where kind of like the theoretical um, is limited, because the beauty of science is that you can actually probe reality. And then one of the things, I think the points you missed when one of the times when you jumped off or uh, uh, got put it off somehow, is that the beauty of science is that you get to consult reality, so you get to actually also make predictions. So unless in any conviction about any holy book, unless there's some kind of a prediction about something that can be made, it will never hold the same amount of water as any prediction that can be made, like in science, because of that. You need to be able to do something with it. Otherwise, the human mind is so good at coming with all these connections and observations that you will never know if it's not just like a conviction that you have, which most likely, not you personally, but all of us, when we talk about an idea. Um, Retroactively, it just perfect vision in retrospect, it just never works as well, because we're so good at kind of deluding ourselves that we found a pattern when the pattern is just us convinced and making everything else match. And again, I'm sure you're aware of this. Oh, so because you did say you're an information scientist, I think that part about what you just said about the infinite regress, first of all, if the truth is that it's infinite regress, then it is the truth. The fact that it doesn't make sense to us doesn't make it not true. And infinite regress is not different than the idea of infinity. If you say that you think that maybe the universe is infinite, which most physicists would say it's very plausible, it is not different to say that infinite regress is possible, because it's the same thing. Literally infinite regress, right? And infinity is essentially the infinite regress of space itself. So now it doesn't matter how far you go with the level of understanding of physics, let's say, and you say, well, but these rules, they just must be there. Okay, but then why these rules and no other rules? You still have to explain that, right? So you always have this infinite regress. And I think that ultimately you just have to be comfortable with the idea that it might be the case. And the only reason that scientists and philosophers don't like this idea, and they like to say that, well, that's infinite regress, so we don't go there. It's not like infinite regress means that's wrong. It just means that scientists can't do anything with it. So they say, well, we can't investigate this, so we can't postulate that it's real. It's the looking under a lamp problem, right? Like if you lose your keys at night somewhere next to the bushes, but it's really dark next to the bushes, it's very common for people to kind of like, I don't actually know who does this in real life, to be honest, but this is an example that people use to illustrate a point. That people go and look under the light when the light is very far away from where you lost your keys. So it's kind of like that kind of scenario where, like, the keys are next to the bushes, there's just no light there, so but you go look in a different place because there's light there, so it doesn't make any sense. So I'm not saying infinite regress necessarily is the case, but I'm saying if it is the case, tough. That's what it is. The consciousness is all there is. It's the substrate of the simulation. Yeah, I would say that is the case. This must be a limitation in my perception of causality. In all of ours, not just yours. I don't understand how this infinite chain of simulations would start, then if not from the base reality. Well, it's the same question of how everything would start. And it's the same question of how God would start, because it's something that is a no-go zone for religious people. But if you are in the interest of answering the ultimate question and not in the interest of believing what God said, which is a very different kind of question, then you still have to explain how God came to be, which I think God himself does not know. But this can be solved logically. No, I don't think so. Think about it from the library perspective. You try to check out a book with infinite people in from the firmware is there even when a computer turns off. The firmware, yeah. Well, so essentially what you're describing is all of it is encapsulated with the idea of the Infinity Hotel, right? The Infinity Hotel is a framework that that people use to kind of explain the different types of infinities. And they're all essentially just mathematical tools, most of them developed by Cantor, set theory, and adjacent mathematical tools. And the Infinity Hotel, if you guys are not familiar, I'm sure there's like a million videos that can explain it on YouTube. If you just do Infinity Hotel, it will give you all this like mind-bending ideas with infinities. The problem with all of these is that they're fundamentally based on, and again, you're informational scientist, so this would be easy to explain. They're based on uncomputable sets. So the difference between, for example, mathematics that kind of contain the idea of infinite numbers and computation is that computation has to be able to be run, right? And if you don't know what the final output is in the end of a computational process, then it's not computable. And if it's not computable, like if you have to compute forever, that's the difference between mathematics and all these ideas about infinities and computation. It has to be, you need to be able to instantiate the process in the environment you find yourself in. And that's the big difference between these things. So logically, you might tell yourself you solved it, but logic doesn't help you with infinite sets because you don't have true intuition about infinite sets. You don't actually understand them on a level of what is the character of these infinities. Reality based. Wait. We are all one big beautiful thing that has a lot of really cool tiny parts. I got here too late. Even a wonderful night. Oh, have a wonderful night. And as always, sleep well. Thank you so much, man. You're so kind. You too. Not the band. The firmware is there. Even you wrote it. Okay. And on 100%, we'll adjourn. Guys, much love. Matthew, thank you so much for a lovely conversation. We'll continue this and email me what you would like. Love you all. See you tomorrow. Peace and love. Good night, everybody. See you, YouTube. Love you, Mom. Love you guys. Bye.